They're coming from the text Tying the Score, Men and Women in Basketball. That was the text that we read last week in our student response books. Remember, that was the article that was comparing men's and women's professional basketball. The first word we're going to talk about is rowdy. Rowdy means wild and noisy. Take a look at this picture. This poor teacher, she looks like she's got a headache. Rowdy, an example from the text was James Nasmith. He was the PE teacher. He wanted to find a game that rowdy or wild and noisy students could play indoors during the winter. So sometimes people are rowdy or wild and noisy when they are excited or they're having fun. People might become rowdy when they are playing games with their friends or when they are at a party or a sporting event, such as a basketball or a football game. I want you to think for a moment. When is a time when you were rowdy? You can use this sentence frame right here. If you have someone next to you, you can turn and talk or think to yourself. I was rowdy when. Go ahead. Okay. Great example. Let's look at the next word. The next word is rowdier. So very similar to rowdy, except we're adding a suffix. A suffix is a group of letters that's added to the end of a word to make a new word. So when we add the letters ER to a word, it typically means more. So when we add ER to the word rowdy, it makes the word rowdier, which means more rowdy, more wild, and noisy. You got it. We use the word rowdier to make comparisons. A group of kids who are running, jumping, and shouting are rowdier than a group of kids who are playing but more quietly. I want you to think for just a moment. At what time of the day are you likely to be rowdier? In the morning or in the evening, and why? If you have someone next to you, you can turn and talk or think to yourself. But go ahead and use this sentence frame right here. I'm likelier to be rowdier blank because blank. Okay, so I'm thinking about myself. I'm likelier to be rowdier in the morning, because in the evening I tend to get like a little more sleepy because I've been busy working or going nonstop all day. Let's look at the next word, impressive. In the article we learned that basketball programs for men developed earlier than programs for women, but that by the 1950s, women's programs were beginning to grow. Something impressive has had a strong effect on your mind. You notice it and you remember it. An example from that text, when we look at this picture right here, we know that in the 1950s, few women basketball players were as tall as Nera White, so her height was very impressive. People noticed how tall she was, and they remembered that when they were watching her play. So again, impressive things have a strong effect on your mind, and you notice and you remember them. So now I want you to think to yourself for a moment. When have you seen something that was impressive? Why was it impressive? If you have someone next to you, you can turn and talk or think to yourself to finish this sentence frame right here. I saw blank. It was impressive because. Go ahead. Okay, great example. I think personally I saw the Statue of Liberty. It was impressive because it was so tall and grand and beautiful. Last thing I want you to do, think of another example using the word impressive. Who is a person you think is impressive and why? You can use this language frame right here. I think blank is impressive because. You can turn and talk to someone next to you or think to yourself. Go ahead. I think typically of like whoever my boss is at the time. I've had several different jobs, and I think that, in thinking of teaching and here at the school, I think our administrator, our principal, Mr. Richardson, is impressive because he's responsible for so many students and so many staff members here at such a large school. All right, guys, great work. That wraps up day 1. We'll see you back tomorrow for day 2.